Death doesn't always come in tragic or expected ways. Sometimes, it's downright ridiculous. In this video, we uncover the most absurd and silly deaths, from outrageous accidents to bizarre mishaps that seem too unbelievable to be true. These crazy, laughable, yet tragic tales will leave you shaking your head in disbelief. How could such odd circumstances lead to someone's end? Get ready for the wildest stories you've ever heard. This is 1 hour of people who died in extremely silly ways.
It was the evening of September 2008 in Edlington, South Yorkshire, England. Andrew Lee, a 33-year-old aspiring chef and forklift driver, had decided to participate in a daring challenge. Known for his love of cooking, Andrew wanted to test his limits with an incredibly spicy chili sauce. Cooking was more than a hobby for Andrew. He was passionate about trying new recipes and dreamed of someday becoming a chef in France. His room was filled with cookbooks, and he often created new dishes. On this particular evening, Andrew made a bet with his girlfriend's brother, Michael. The challenge was simple but risky, to see who could handle eating the hottest chili sauce. Andrew's father had grown the peppers used in the sauce, specially cultivated for the contest. With their plates ready, Andrew and Michael began the challenge. They ate the sauce with nachos, and Andrew added it to a plate of pasta. This was no ordinary sauce. It was made from some of the hottest peppers available. Even for someone like Andrew, who regularly used chili in his cooking, this was beyond what he had ever tried. At first, both men experienced the expected intense heat. Their faces turned red, and sweat poured down their skin. The sauce was overwhelming, but Andrew powered through. However, soon after the contest, Andrew started to feel an unusual itching sensation, which concerned him, but not enough to seek help immediately. As the night continued, Andrew's discomfort worsened. By 2:30 a.m., he went to bed at his girlfriend Samantha Bailey's house, still feeling the itch. Samantha, who had 4 children, tried to comfort him by scratching his back until he finally fell asleep. The next morning, Samantha woke up to a nightmare. Andrew was unresponsive, lying still in bed. She called for an ambulance, but despite the paramedics' best efforts, Andrew was declared dead at the scene. His sudden death shocked everyone. Andrew had been a healthy man and had recently passed a full medical examination at work. No one could understand how a simple chili eating contest could have such a tragic outcome. An inquest was launched and a post-mortem examination was conducted, but it didn't provide a clear cause of death. To further investigate, toxicology tests were ordered to see if the chili sauce could have caused a fatal reaction. Medical experts explained that allergic responses to chili peppers are rare, but possible. Capsaicin, the compound that makes chilies hot, has some health benefits, but can also cause serious issues in large amounts. Andrew's mother, Pamela, was devastated by her son's sudden death. She described him as a healthy, ambitious man who loved cooking and couldn't understand how such a normal activity could end in such a tragedy. The family waited anxiously for answers, hoping the toxicology results would clarify. This event raised awareness of the potential dangers of consuming extremely spicy foods. Health experts warned against the trend of breeding hotter and hotter chili varieties, noting that even mild reactions can include burning eyes, a runny nose, and hiccups. In rare cases, severe reactions can lead to more serious complications, including heart issues, which might have happened in Andrew's case. Though the exact cause of his death remains unclear, it's evident that the ultra-hot chili sauce played a significant role. Andrew's love for cooking and willingness to take on culinary challenges ended unexpectedly and heartbreakingly. What if Andrew had decided to skip the challenge that night? What if he had seen the itching as a sign to get medical help? These lingering questions show us the risks that sometimes come with even the most innocent activities. It was November 30th, 2004, in Kent, Washington. Philip Quinn, a 24-year-old man, was found dead in his trailer home after a tragic accident involving a lava lamp. Known for his curiosity, Philip was excited to try out his new lava lamp, a decorative item popular for the gentle movement of wax inside. These lamps heat the wax with a bulb, causing it to rise and fall inside a glass container. The lamp is designed to operate at around 60 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees Fahrenheit, with the wax melting slowly under the gentle heat of a 40-watt bulb. Philip's eagerness to see the lamp in action led to a fatal mistake. Philip grew impatient when the lava lamp didn't start working as quickly as he expected. Instead of waiting, he placed the lamp on his kitchen stove to speed up the process. This decision turned deadly, as the lamp's glass container was not built to handle the direct heat from a stove. The intense heat rapidly overheated the liquid and wax inside the bottle, causing them to expand faster than they were designed to. The wax, which normally rises and falls in a slow cycle, was now heating uncontrollably. Lava lamps are meant to function under controlled temperatures, and the stove's heat pushed the temperature far beyond safe limits. As the pressure inside the glass bottle grew, the lamp's structure couldn't contain it. Within moments, the bottle exploded. A large shard of glass from the lava lamp was propelled through the air with force, striking Philip directly in the chest. The glass pierced his heart, causing a fatal injury. In shock and immense pain, Philip managed to stumble into his bedroom before collapsing. His parents later found him lying dead on the floor, with the remains of the lava lamp scattered across the kitchen. Investigators quickly ruled out foul play or substance use. They determined that Philip's death was the result of an unfortunate accident caused by his impatience. Had he followed the safety guidelines provided with the lamp, the tragedy could have been avoided. During the investigation, police noted the burnt and shattered remains of the lava lamp in the kitchen. It was clear that Philip had tried to speed up the process by using the stove, leading to the explosion. Experts pieced together what likely happened. The wax inside the bottle finally began to move just before the glass container shattered from the excessive heat, sending deadly shards flying. The incident drew public attention, reminding everyone of the importance of following product safety instructions. Lava lamp manufacturers warn against placing the lamps near direct heat sources like stoves, as this poses a significant risk of overheating and explosion. Philip Quinn's death was even investigated by the popular TV show Mythbusters in 2006. In episode 17, the team attempted to recreate the circumstances of his death. They heated a lava lamp on an electric hot plate and used a human ribcage replica to simulate the effect. Their experiment confirmed that the lava lamp could explode when overheated, sending glass shards flying with dangerous force. While Mythbusters demonstrated that an explosion was possible, they didn't find a glass shard embedded in the torso of their human model, as Philip had experienced. However, their tests showed that the extreme heat from the stove caused the pressure inside the lamp to rise rapidly, making the explosion inevitable. Philip Quinn's story exemplifies how a moment of impatience can turn deadly. It underscores the importance of following safety guidelines and using household items correctly. While lava lamps are mesmerizing and beautiful, they are designed to function under specific conditions. When those conditions are ignored, even something as harmless as a decorative lamp can become dangerous.
On February 5, 1921, in Detroit, Michigan, Thomas Lynn Bradford, a man in his early 40s, took a mysterious turn in his life. Known for his strong belief in spiritualism, Bradford was deeply convinced that spirits and an afterlife existed. His life came to a sudden end that night, wrapped in circumstances that would later intrigue many. Bradford had led an exciting life. He had worked as an electrical engineer, a professional athlete, and even an actor. But in his later years, he became consumed by spiritualism, believing that people continued to exist as spirits who could communicate with the living. Bradford's passion led him to write essays, give public lectures, and even advertise himself as a psychic around Detroit. In the weeks before his death, Bradford placed an ad in the local paper, seeking someone interested in spiritualistic sciences. This caught the attention of Ruth Doran, a writer from a notable Detroit family. Despite her religious background and lack of experience with spiritualism, she was curious about Bradford's intentions and decided to meet him. During their meetings, he revealed his ambitious plan to prove that spirits could reach out to the living. That February evening, Bradford sealed off his apartment, turned off the pilot light on his heater, and filled the room with gas. Police later discovered his body, along with an unfinished manuscript containing a message about proving the existence of spirits. Authorities suspected it was a deliberate act, but struggled to make sense of his motivations. Doran was questioned, and she clarified that while Bradford had spoken about his theories, he had never mentioned ending his life as part of the experiment. She insisted she had no idea about his plan. With no signs of foul play, the case was closed. Doran, however, felt compelled to continue Bradford's experiment. She gathered a group of Detroit spiritualists and hosted several seances, attempting to contact Bradford's spirit. Unfortunately, none of these attempts succeeded. Yet Doran remained hopeful. In an interview with the New York Times that February, she stated that if Bradford could communicate from the afterlife, he would reach out to her first. She expressed faith in Bradford's theories and promised to wait for any sign from him. Soon after, a spiritualist named Lulu Mack claimed she'd interacted with Bradford's spirit. Mack, who knew nothing of Bradford's life, felt a presence reaching out to her. During a seance, she reported hearing a faint voice calling Bradford's name. Mack explained that because Bradford had only recently crossed over, he wasn't yet strong enough to communicate directly with Doran. She suggested his spirit needed time to grow stronger. Despite Mac's claims, there was no concrete proof that Bradford's experiment had worked. Doran, determined to find answers, held another seance. During this session, she suddenly reported hearing Bradford's voice. She claimed he had reached out to her, and she began to dictate a message she believed was from him. The message was both fascinating and eerie. Bradford's spirit described passing peacefully into another realm and noted that the afterlife wasn't as different as he had expected. He mentioned a sense of peace and spoke about being surrounded by people with similar beliefs. He described this new existence as filled with happiness and freedom from life's burdens. Though he claimed he didn't regret his actions, he admitted he was still learning about this new reality. After finishing the message, Doran collapsed, later insisting she had genuinely connected with Bradford's spirit. Despite her conviction, the public and the spiritualist community remained skeptical. No concrete evidence supported Doran's claim, and the case soon faded from public interest. Doran and Mac disappeared from the spotlight, leaving no additional records of attempts to contact Bradford. Bradford's legacy remained a strange and tragic tale. No further reports emerged about successful connections with his spirit, and his experiment became just an unusual story in Detroit's history of spiritualism. It was a sunny afternoon in June 2019 in Litchfield, Staffordshire. Josh Chapman, a 24-year-old self-employed tiler, was enjoying life as a new father. His baby daughter, Harper May, was just 6 months old, and Josh cherished every moment with her. Known for his big personality and even bigger heart, Josh was the life of the party, always making people laugh. His mother, Lisa, described him as loud and charming with a real eye for detail. Despite his struggles with ADHD and dyslexia in school, Josh had a knack for turning every situation into a joke. He was the class clown, always smiling and making others smile too. His family and friends knew him as Captain Chaos, a nickname that reflected his wild and fun-loving nature. But beneath the humor, Josh had a gentle and caring side, especially regarding his daughter. He often said that being Harper's father was the most significant thing he had ever achieved. That day, Josh and his family were returning home from a wedding. Josh, as always, was having a great time and didn't want the fun to end. As they drove down the highway, Josh became increasingly unhappy and vocal about wanting to go back to the venue. In a moment of impulsive decision-making, he opened the car door while it was still moving. Josh fell from the car, hitting the ground hard. The scene was chaotic. Lisa, along with the rest of the family, panicked as they saw Josh lying on the road, bleeding. They quickly called an ambulance, and paramedics arrived to take Josh to Stoke Hospital. Despite the initial hope that Josh would pull through, doctors delivered devastating news. Josh had suffered a severe brain injury. His brain stem was severed. The prognosis was grim. He wouldn't wake up. The family was in shock. They called Josh's friends and loved ones to say their goodbyes. As Josh lay in a coma, an organ donation nurse approached the family. Josh had signed up to be an organ donor. Lisa recalled him mentioning it once, but they never had a detailed conversation about it. However, Josh had checked in twice to confirm his decision. The family had mixed feelings. Some were unsure about the decision at first, but they ultimately decided to honor Josh's wishes. It was a tough choice, but Lisa believed that if a brain stem could save Josh's life, they would have done anything. Josh had always been matter-of-fact, and they knew this was what he wanted. On August 19, 2019, Josh died. His organs were donated to 6 people, giving them a second chance at life. A letter from the recipients shared their gratitude and detailed how Josh's organs had saved their lives. One recipient, Adam, received Josh's liver, allowing him to return to his wife and 3 children. Another recipient, Alex, received Josh's pancreas and a kidney. These letters brought some comfort to Lisa and her family, knowing that Josh's death had given life to others. Josh's funeral was a celebration of his life. His friends organized a pub crawl on his birthday every year, calling it the Tour de Chappie. As they left the church, they played Sweet Caroline, Josh's favorite song. The family kept Josh's memory alive with colorful decorations on his grave, and by sending balloons every Christmas, a holiday Josh loved. Harper, now 5 years old, knows about her father through home videos where he sang to her and made her laugh. Lisa keeps the letters from the organ recipients in a memory box for Harper to read one day. Harper is a spitting image of Josh, with his personality and sass, making it feel like a part of him is still with them. Josh's story highlights the importance of organ donation. His decision to be an organ donor saved 6 lives and brought hope to many families. As part of Organ Donation Week, the NHS Blood and Transplant Service celebrates the lives saved by organ donors like Josh. With over 100,000 lives saved since the creation of the NHS Organ Donor Register in 1994, the need for more donors is ever present. In the UK, all adults are considered potential organ donors, but people are encouraged to register their decisions online to clarify their intentions. Lisa and Emma, Josh's partner, now advocate for organ donation, encouraging others to join the register. Josh's legacy lives on through the lives he saved and the love he left behind. What if Josh hadn't opened that car door? What if there was more awareness about the dangers of impulsive decisions? What if more people knew the importance of organ donation and registered their decision? These questions linger, but one thing is certain. Josh's decision to donate his organs turned a tragic accident into a life-saving legacy. It was October 27, 2024 in Queens, New York. 13-year-old Crystal Romero from Brooklyn was spending time with her friend, a 12-year-old girl whose name remained private. Known for being adventurous, they often sought thrill in risky activities. On this day, their choice led them to the 111th Street subway station, where they decided to engage in subway surfing, an increasingly popular but hazardous activity among teens. Subway surfing involves riding on the outside of a moving train, a trend that has already led to several tragic incidents. The 2 girls climbed onto the top of a train as it left the station, seeking the thrill and social media attention this activity often garners. As the train picked up speed, both girls suddenly lost their balance. Crystal fell onto the tracks, while her friend, though critically injured, survived the fall. A nearby commuter heard the commotion when the train stopped and noticed the lights dimming. Emergency services were called immediately. New York City police arrived to find Crystal unresponsive. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Her friend was rushed to a nearby hospital where she was treated for severe injuries, including a fractured skull. Following this tragedy, Jano Lieber, the chair and CEO of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, spoke at a press conference on October 29th. He expressed sadness and frustration, remarking how heartbreaking it was for families and the community when young lives were lost to such dangerous stunts. On October 28th, Mayor Eric Adams shared his sorrow on social media, emphasizing the dangers of pursuing social media fame through such activities. He called on New Yorkers and social media platforms to help raise awareness. Adams warned that no social media post was worth risking one's life. Crystal's mother, Maria Elena Ortiz, was devastated, expressing her despair through a translator. She urged other teens not to get involved in such activities, reminding them of the pain they would cause their families. A family friend shared that Crystal's involvement in subway surfing was a shock, as her mother had warned her against it. He noted that Crystal fell on the tracks for likes on social media, emphasizing the dangerous lure of online attention. This incident was not isolated. Crystal's death marked the 6th subway surfing fatality in New York City in 2019. Just a week before, another 13-year-old Adolfo Sorzano also lost his life while subway surfing in Queens. Despite his parents' warnings after finding similar videos on his phone, Adolfo continued the activity, leading to a tragic outcome. Adolfo's family described him as full of dreams, now gone too soon. Other young victims included Alam Reyes, 14, who died in January after falling from a train in Coney Island. In June, a 13-year-old lost his life while subway surfing in the Bronx. And in July, 15-year-old Anthony Bagwandine was killed after attempting the stunt in Queens. More recently, in September, 11-year-old Caden Thompson lost his life while subway surfing in Brooklyn. Caden's death led his 15-year-old uncle to vow against trying the trend again, urging other kids to stop for the sake of their lives. In response to these tragic events, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and the New York Police Department stepped up their efforts to prevent subway surfing. The MTA launched a campaign titled Subway surfing kills, ride inside, stay alive, with public service announcements and social media messages warning of the dangers. Lieber also highlighted efforts to monitor and remove subway surfing videos from social media platforms and called on parents and schools to educate children on these risks. Mayor Adams has further addressed the role of social media in influencing young minds, comparing its impact to how movies inspire certain behaviors in children. He said that social media has radicalized and hijacked children, stressing that this issue goes beyond subway surfing alone and calls for widespread awareness and understanding. The message from officials and grieving family members is clear: subway surfing is not a game and the risks are all too real. As heartbreaking stories continue to emerge, they hope young people understand the severe consequences that can come with this dangerous activity.
On October 31st, 2024, Diwali night brought light and laughter to Bengaluru, India. Amidst the celebrations, however, one group of friends witnessed a tragic turn of events, an example of the dangers that could arise from reckless decisions. In the middle of the festivities was 32-year-old Shabarish, a construction worker known for his friendly nature. After a long day at work, he eagerly joined his friends to celebrate. Shabarish, who led a modest life, valued his time with loved ones. That night, encouraged by the energy of the festival and a few drinks, his friends presented him with a daring challenge. They offered him a new auto rickshaw if he would sit on a box of lit fireworks and let them explode beneath him. For Shabarish, who owned very little, this was a tempting offer. At around 9:30 in the evening, Shabarish accepted the dare, likely not fully aware of the risks. CCTV footage captured the event as the fireworks went off beneath him, leading to a powerful explosion that knocked him to the ground. His friends, stunned by what had happened, rushed him to Victoria Hospital, hoping he could recover. However, his injuries were severe, with extensive burns across his lower body. Shabarish fought for his life in the hospital over the next couple of days. His mother, Vijaya, first heard about the incident through one of Shabarish's friends, who vaguely mentioned he'd been hurt while handling fireworks. At the time, she had no idea about the real cause of his injuries as she watched her son suffer. On November 2nd, Shabarish succumbed to his injuries. The severe burns had taken an irreversible toll. As his family made arrangements for his funeral, they finally learned the truth of what had happened. CCTV footage revealed the role his friends played in pushing him toward the dare, and Vijaya was devastated to learn they had misled her, initially making her believe it was an accidental injury. Authorities quickly put together the details of the night. Deputy Commissioner of Police Lokesh Jagalasar reported that 6 friends who had encouraged Shabarish to perform the dangerous stunt were arrested and charged. The tragic events resulted from a mix of alcohol, poor judgment, and peer pressure. What began as a daring challenge with the promise of an auto rickshaw ended in a tragic loss, deeply impacting Shabarish's family. Shabarish's story is one among many, as accidents involving fireworks frequently spike during Diwali in India. Although the season brings joy for many, it often leads to unfortunate incidents, sometimes with fatal outcomes. Just days before Shabarish's accident, a 65-year-old man in Faridabad, near New Delhi, approached people setting off fireworks outside his home, asking them to stop. The situation escalated into violence, and the man tragically lost his life. In another incident in Uttar Pradesh, a 42-year-old woman named Kalawati met a similar fate. She tried to confront her neighbor over fireworks outside her house, and a heated argument followed, ending in a tragic outcome. These incidents show how disputes over fireworks can lead to unexpected and deadly consequences, especially during times of celebration. In Bengaluru, where Shabarish's tragedy occurred, authorities have been working to discourage risky behaviors associated with fireworks. In one instance, 2 students were detained for throwing lit firecrackers onto a busy road while riding a scooter. Although no one was hurt, this incident emphasized the dangers of irresponsible fireworks use and the risks to both participants and bystanders. Shabarish's family now faces the painful aftermath of his loss. Vijaya, his mother, initially trusted the young men who were with her son that night, believing their story about an accidental injury. It was only later, after seeing the CCTV footage, that she fully understood their role in the tragedy. Now, she wishes her son had avoided the Diwali festivities altogether. This tragic dare turned a night of celebration into a heartbreaking event, showing how easily festivities can spiral into disaster when poor decisions are made under the influence of alcohol. For Shabarish, the promise of a new auto rickshaw and the possibility of a better life clouded his judgment, leading him to a fatal choice. Ultimately, Shabarish's story reminds people of the risks linked to firework-related incidents in India. Diwali is celebrated with lights and fireworks, But the hidden dangers often go unspoken. Families are left wondering how such tragedies can happen during times meant for joy and unity. It was October 2008 in Brussels, Belgium. AJ, a 20-year-old student, had a habit of cooking meals in bulk to save time during his busy week. On a Sunday, he prepared a large batch of spaghetti with tomato sauce, intending to eat it throughout the week. However, instead of storing it in the fridge, AJ left it out at room temperature. 5 days later, after a tiring day at school, he came home hungry, quickly microwaved some of the pasta, and ate it. Soon after, he headed out to meet friends for sports. Little did he know this quick meal would have severe consequences. Shortly after eating, AJ noticed the pasta tasted slightly off, but he brushed it aside, thinking it was only the sauce. Within 30 minutes of meeting his friends, he began to feel unwell, with symptoms like headache, nausea, and stomach cramps. He rushed home, where the symptoms worsened into severe vomiting and intense diarrhea. Believing he had mild food poisoning, AJ chose to rest, hoping it would pass. Exhausted, he drank water and lay down, unaware that his situation was more serious than he thought. Around midnight, AJ suffered another bout of diarrhea, but still decided not to seek medical help. His parents, unaware of his condition, found him the next morning. Tragically, he had passed away during the night. His life ended suddenly due to acute liver failure from a rare case of food poisoning. An autopsy revealed that AJ had died around 4 a.m., roughly 10 hours after consuming the spaghetti. Tests on the remaining pasta showed high levels of Bacillus cereus, a bacterium known to cause foodborne illness. This bacteria produces toxins that usually result in mild symptoms such as nausea and vomiting. However, in rare cases like a .J.S, the toxins can lead to a severe reaction known as liver necrosis, where liver tissue starts to die, eventually causing organ failure. Years later, a US-based doctor named Dr. Bernard shared a .J.S story on his YouTube channel, and it quickly gained over 2 million views. Dr. Bernard explained that while food poisoning rarely leads to such severe outcomes, the toxins in this case directly impacted a .J.S liver, causing it to fail within hours. Even if AJ had gone to the hospital, the time required to identify the bacteria would likely have been too long to prevent his tragic outcome. Bacillus cereus is a spore-forming bacterium that thrives in starchy foods like pasta and rice, especially when left at room temperature. In AJ's situation, the spaghetti had been sitting out for 5 days, allowing the bacteria to multiply and produce harmful levels of toxins. These toxins are heat-resistant, meaning reheating the food wouldn't have eliminated the risk. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Microbiology backed Dr. Bernard's warnings, stressing the importance of proper food storage, particularly for starchy foods that can easily become contaminated. Although the report couldn't definitively prove Bacillus cereus was the sole cause of AJ's death, it showed the bacteria's ability to produce powerful toxins that require careful handling to prevent serious illness. As news of this incident spread online, social media users on platforms like TikTok and Reddit expressed shock and concern. Many admitted they had often eaten leftovers left out for a day or two, unaware of the risks. The term fried rice syndrome became popular, referring to Bacillus cereus contamination often associated with reheated rice. However, AJ's experience showed that pasta and other starchy foods could pose similar dangers if not stored properly. One Reddit user commented that he used to eat pizza that's been left out overnight, unaware of the risks. Another shared that he kept leftovers for 3 days without concern, but they would definitely think twice now. This tragic story served as a wake-up call, exposing a common gap in food safety knowledge. The takeaway is clear: storing food safely is essential. Leftover food should be cooled and refrigerated within an hour of cooking to prevent bacterial growth. If something smells or tastes unusual, it's best to discard it rather than risk illness. Dr. Bernard emphasized that, while a .J.S death is a rare case, other fatalities had been documented, underscoring the importance of good food hygiene. Although Bacillus cereus poisoning is typically mild, in rare cases it can affect the liver and lead to fatal outcomes. By following basic food safety practices, especially with leftovers, we can help prevent tragic situations like this.
It was August 7th, 1997, in Buxton, North Carolina, a small village on Hatteras Island. Daniel Jones, a 21-year-old student from Woodbridge, Virginia, was on summer break, enjoying a beach day with his girlfriend, Julie Baker. Daniel was curious and adventurous, passionate about the outdoors. He studied at Northern Virginia Community College and worked as a computer systems engineer. On this day, he was doing something he had loved since childhood: digging in the sand. Daniel had been on Hatteras Island for a week with Julie. The couple had been together for 4 years, having met in high school, and they planned to marry. Julie often joined Daniel on his beach outings, and this time was no different. She watched him dig a large hole in the sand, capturing the moment on her video camera. The hole Daniel dug was unusually deep, around 9 feet deep and 8 feet wide. He had spent most of the morning digging, likely enjoying the cooler temperature, and break from the wind inside the hole. Nearby beachgoers saw Daniel digging and assumed he was having fun. They didn't think much of it. Around 1:50 p.m., tragedy struck. The whole walls collapsed, burying Daniel under several feet of sand. Julie screamed for help, and people nearby rushed over. Panic quickly set in as they realized how dangerous the situation had become. The sand was heavy and packed tightly, trapping Daniel underneath. Tourists, locals, and rescue workers immediately started digging. They used anything they could find, from their hands to plastic toy shovels. Even Ollie Jarvis, the owner of a nearby tackle shop, handed out shovels to people trying to help. More than 200 people gathered, working together in a desperate attempt to save Daniel. Unfortunately, the sand collapsed into the hole, making it harder to reach him. It took nearly an hour before the rescue team uncovered Daniel's head. They placed an oxygen mask over his face, but it was too late. Daniel was pronounced dead at Hatteras Island Medical Center. The cause of death was suffocation. The news of Daniel's tragic death spread quickly, shocking those who knew him. His mother, Mary Ann Jones, spoke about Daniel's love for digging, recalling that it was something he had done since childhood. He always loved playing in the sand, but never dug that deep, she shared. Daniel wasn't just a regular beachgoer. He was also an Eagle Scout, known for his kindness and dedication to helping others. He regularly volunteered at a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C., handing out sandwiches every Friday night. His death left a deep void in the hearts of many who knew and loved him. Julie Baker, his girlfriend, was devastated. The couple had shared dreams of the future, and Daniel's sudden death shattered those plans. Friends and family gathered to mourn the loss of a young man with so much potential, whose life was cut tragically short. Locals and tourists alike questioned why Daniel had dug such a deep hole. Carol Dillon, owner of the Outer Banks Motel where Daniel had been staying, remembered his kind and friendly demeanor. "He was like a ray of sunshine," she said. Ryan Dawson, a 19-year-old from Buxton who helped in the rescue, expressed his grief over the tragedy. "I was just hoping he'd be alive when we got him out," he said, saddened by the outcome. Daniel Jones's tragic death shows the hidden dangers of everyday activities. Although seemingly harmless, digging deep holes in the sand can turn deadly when the walls collapse. Despite the overwhelming effort from those around him, Daniel could not be saved, leaving his family and friends to grieve the loss of a bright and caring young man. August 14th, 2010, a warm Saturday morning in Kentucky. Kalita Nicole Hicks, a 20-year-old from Olive Hill, was driving down Country Road 519 in her Chevy. Kalita lived with her parents, John and Janice Abney Hicks. She also had a brother, Jeremy Clayton, and a sister, Stephanie Campbell. That day, Kalita and her passenger decided to make a dangerous move. They planned to switch seats while the car was still moving. Kalita's Chevy had an open T-top, and they believed this would make the swap possible. Their idea was for Kalita to climb onto the roof, while her passenger slid into the driver's seat. Kalita began to pull herself onto the roof of the speeding car, but things took a fatal turn. As she climbed, she lost her balance. Her foot hit the steering wheel, causing the vehicle to swerve. Her passenger tried to regain control by grabbing the wheel, but Kalita had already fallen out of the car. As she fell, Kalita hit a guardrail at a high speed, suffering catastrophic injuries. She was rushed to the University of Kentucky Medical Center in Lexington, where she underwent surgery, but she could not be saved. Kalita passed away later that morning. The Fayette County Coroner's Office confirmed that her injuries from the fall were the cause of her death. Her death was not only tragic, but entirely avoidable. The reckless decision to switch seats while the car was moving cost Kalita her life. Meanwhile, despite avoiding further disaster, the passenger faced legal consequences. He was arrested and charged with driving on a suspended license, improper registration, and having no insurance. Kalita's sudden death devastated her family. Her parents, John and Janice, were left heartbroken. Her siblings, Jeremy and Stephanie, struggled to cope with the loss. Her grandparents, Alfred and Mary Shrum Hicks, along with the rest of her family and friends, mourned the tragic accident. On August 17, 2010, Kalita was laid to rest. Her funeral took place at Globe Funeral Chapel in Olive Hill, Kentucky. Kalita was buried in the Hicks family cemetery on Garvin Ridge in Olive Hill, surrounded by her grieving loved ones. Kalita's story later appeared in the Darwin Awards, a platform highlighting deaths resulting from reckless behavior. The Rydam Cowgirl entry labeled Kalita's death as a cautionary story, a harsh lesson about the dangers of risky actions. There are many lessons to be learned from this tragedy. Most importantly, It shows the dangers of not taking road safety seriously. Attempting dangerous stunts while driving can have dire consequences. While Kalita's passenger tried to prevent a worse outcome by grabbing the wheel, his irresponsible decision, driving on a suspended license, contributed to the situation. Kalita's death forces us to reflect on how things could have gone differently. What if they had simply pulled over to switch seats safely? What if they had considered the potential consequences before taking such a risk? Kalita Nicole Hicks, born in 1989, lost her life at just 20 years old due to a single impulsive decision. Her death tells us the importance of road safety, leaving her family and community to grieve the loss of a young woman with so much ahead of her. It was February 22, 2008, in Swansea, South Wales. A 34-year-old graphic design student, Adam Dealey, attended a photography exhibition at the Monkey Cafe nightclub. Originally from Birmingham, Adam had moved to Swansea to pursue his degree, working part-time at the club to support his studies. He wasn't working, but enjoying the event with his friends that night. Adam was known for his friendly personality and love of having fun. As the night went on, a spontaneous eating contest began among the attendees. It started as a light-hearted joke, seeing who could stuff the most fairy cakes, small sponge cakes, into their mouths. One person managed to fit 3, then another fit 4. Adam caught up, decided to join in, and attempted to cram 5 cakes into his mouth. However, things quickly took a serious turn. Adam realized he couldn't breathe and started choking. He walked towards the toilets, likely trying to spit out the cakes. Unfortunately, his friends initially thought he was still joking and didn't notice the severity of the situation. One of Adam's friends, Daniel Finselbach, noticed something was wrong and followed him to the toilets. There, he saw Adam convulsing, struggling to cough up the cakes. Daniel immediately attempted the Heimlich maneuver, trying to dislodge the food from Adam's throat. Despite his efforts, Adam collapsed and hit his head on the toilet. Paramedics were called immediately. They arrived within 10 minutes, but by then Adam had already gone into cardiac arrest. They rushed him to Singleton Hospital, continuing their attempts to revive him, but sadly, Adam was pronounced dead at 3:20 a.m. The news of Adam's death shocked everyone who knew him. Amanda Davey and Paul Dyke, the owners of the Monkey Cafe, were devastated. In a statement, they expressed their deep sorrow and offered condolences to Adam's family, calling it a tragic and avoidable accident. An inquest into Adam's death was held, confirming that the cause was choking due to the blockage of food in both his upper and lower airways. Dr. Maurizio Brotto, who performed the post-mortem, verified this. The coroner, Philip Rogers, recorded a verdict of misadventure, emphasizing the risks of such actions, saying, "It doesn't take me to say that trying to fit as much food in your mouth as possible is dangerous." During the inquest, it was revealed that Adam had been drinking that night and had about 1.5 times the legal drink-drive limit of alcohol in his system. However, Dr. Brotto explained that this level wouldn't have significantly impaired Adam's judgment, especially since he was used to drinking. The spontaneous nature of the cake-eating contest was a key point of discussion at the inquest. Stephen Jenkins, another attendee, explained how the contest started. "There was a tray of cakes from the buffet. My friend tried to fit 3 cakes in his mouth, so I tried to beat him by putting 4 in mine. Adam heard about it and tried 5. I saw that he was struggling, but then he walked towards the toilets." Daniel Finselbach, who had tried to save Adam, described what he witnessed. "I saw Adam walk towards the toilets, his body convulsing. There was cake around his mouth, and he was struggling to breathe. I ran after him and slapped his back hard, then tried the Heimlich maneuver, but he collapsed." The coroner's ruling of misadventure highlighted the accidental nature of Adam's death. Philip Rogers stressed that activities involving large amounts of food are inherently dangerous and should be avoided. He also clarified that the bar staff did not organize the cake-eating contest, but was an impromptu act by the attendees. Adam's family was deeply affected by his sudden death. He was their only child, and his parents, Sandra and Robert, were too devastated to attend the inquest. The last time they had seen Adam was during a visit to his university in December, just 2 months before the tragedy. They were proud of their son and his plans to move to New Zealand after finishing his studies. The Monkey Cafe community also mourned Adam's death. Flowers and tributes were laid outside the cafe in his memory. Paul Cunningham, a sound engineer at the club, expressed his sorrow and urged others to be cautious with similar pranks, warning, "Don't play these games. They can end in tragedy." He described Adam as a kind person who is loved by everyone and will be greatly missed.
It was 2011 in Kazan, Russia. Fagilyu Mukhametsyanov, a 49-year-old woman, had been living a typical life with her husband, Fagili Mukhametsyanov, aged 51. They had a routine that was comforting and familiar. But everything changed drastically one day when Fagiliu started feeling intense chest pains. Fagili, deeply concerned, rushed her to the hospital. The doctors examined her and concluded that she had suffered a massive heart attack. To the family's horror, the doctors declared her dead. The news was devastating. Fagili was shattered, losing the woman he had spent his life with. The family quickly made arrangements for her funeral following the local customs. 2 days later, the family gathered to say their final goodbyes. Fagiliu's funeral was held with an open casket, as per tradition. Friends and family filed past, mourning and praying for her soul. The atmosphere was filled with sorrow and grief. The prayers for her to find peace in the afterlife could be heard. Then something shocking happened. Fagiliu's eyes suddenly fluttered open. The supposedly dead woman had regained consciousness. She realized she was in a coffin surrounded by people mourning her death. The shock of her surroundings caused her to start screaming. The mourners, stunned and frightened, watched in disbelief. Fagili immediately acted. He and other family members rushed her back to the hospital. This time, it wasn't a question of making it on time, but a desperate race against the shock-induced state she was in. Unfortunately, despite their efforts, Fagiliu only lived for another 12 minutes in the intensive care unit before she passed away again, this time permanently. Her second death was confirmed as heart failure, a tragic conclusion to an already distressing event. The family was left in shock and anger. Fagili was particularly outraged. He couldn't comprehend how the doctors had made such a grave mistake. His wife had been declared dead when she wasn't. He believed that if they had caught this earlier, she might have had a chance to survive. The hospital started an investigation to understand what went wrong. How could such a crucial error be made? The family, especially Fagili, demanded answers. They wanted to know why she was pronounced dead when she was still alive. The doctor's misdiagnosis had not only caused immense grief, but also a shocking experience for everyone involved. This tragic event wasn't an isolated case of such errors. Instances of people being declared dead incorrectly have been reported around the world. For example, a man in Brazil turned up alive at his funeral, and a premature baby in Paraguay woke up before his funeral, only to pass away shortly after. These incidents raise serious concerns about the protocols and checks in place in medical institutions. For Fagili, the loss was profound. He planned to sue the hospital for the mistake that led to his wife's traumatic and untimely death. He wanted justice for Fagiliu and hoped that such a tragedy would not happen to another family. The investigation by the hospital aimed to find out how the doctors could have been so wrong. What measures failed to lead to Fagiliu being declared dead? How did they miss the signs of life? These questions needed answers for the Mukametsiana family and all who put their trust in medical professionals. The story of Fagiliu Mukametsianov is a heart-wrenching tale of a medical error with fatal consequences. It is a grim reminder of the importance of accuracy and thoroughness in medical diagnoses. It was August 31, 2019, in Staroy Selo, a village in Belarus. Yulia Sharko, a 21-year-old mother of two, was celebrating her birthday with her family and friends. Known for her vibrant spirit and love for her children, Yulia was enjoying the day. But as the evening drew near, a tragic accident would change everything. Yulia and her family were at a friend's house, enjoying the warm summer day. The children were playing, and everyone was in high spirits. As the day passed, Yulia needed to get something from her car, a BMW E34. Her 2-year-old daughter was inside, and Yulia decided to lift her out through the half-open front passenger window. In seconds, what seemed like a simple action turned into a nightmare. As Yulia reached through the window, her daughter accidentally pressed the automatic window button. The window started to close, trapping Yulia's neck. It was a freak accident. The window jammed around her neck, cutting off her air supply. Within moments, Yulia lost consciousness. Her husband, Artur, found her shortly afterward. He was shocked to see his wife hanging from the car window, unconscious and not breathing. In a panic, he broke the window to free her and pulled her out, hoping to revive her. The scene was chaotic, with friends and family rushing to help. Artur immediately called emergency services. Yulia was taken to Brest Regional Hospital in critical condition. The medical team worked tirelessly to save her. She suffered severe asphyxia, which led to irreversible brain damage. For 8 days, Yulia remained in a coma, her family hoping for a miracle. But on September 8, 2019, she passed away. Her brain had suffered too much damage from the lack of oxygen. Yulia's death left a deep void in the lives of those who knew her. She was a devoted mother to her 2 young daughters, 4-year-old Margarita and 2-year-old Ariana. Her family was devastated. The investigation by the Belarus Investigative Committee confirmed the details of the accident. The committee stated that Yulia had been trying to get her daughter out of the car when the child pressed the button, causing the window to close and fatally injuring Yulia. The incident was widely reported in local and international media. Photos of Yulia with her family and the car involved were shared, painting a heartbreaking picture of the tragedy. As an account manager, Yulia was remembered as a loving mother and kind-hearted person. What happened to Yulia Sharko is a sobering reminder of how quickly life can change. She was celebrating her birthday one moment, and the next, she was gone. It's a tragic story that underscores the importance of being cautious, especially around children and machinery.
On September 24, 1980, John Bonham, the iconic drummer of Led Zeppelin, was preparing for the band's first tour in 3 years. Led Zeppelin had been on a break, but Bonham was eager to return to the stage. Known for his heavy drinking, his day began with several strong drinks at breakfast. Bonham was picked up by Led Zeppelin's assistant, Rex King, and during a breakfast stop, he quickly consumed 4 vodka drinks, setting the tone for a day marked by excessive drinking. Throughout the day, Bonham continued to drink while the band rehearsed at guitarist Jimmy Page's home in Bray, a small village in England. As the hours wore on, Bonham's drinking intensified. By the time rehearsals ended, he was visibly affected by the large quantity of alcohol he'd consumed. That night, as everyone prepared to rest, Bonham was put to bed in one of Page's spare rooms. His bandmates, well aware of his drinking habits, took the precaution of laying him on his side in case he became ill in his sleep. The next morning, on September 25, 1980, Led Zeppelin's road manager Ben Lefebvre went to check on Bonham and immediately realized something was wrong. Bonham was unresponsive. Lefebvre attempted to find a pulse but found none. In a panic, he called for help and an ambulance soon arrived. Sadly, despite their efforts, it was too late. At just 32 years old, John Bonham had passed away. An examination later confirmed that Bonham died from pulmonary aspiration. While unconscious, he had choked on his vomit, a result of the large amount of alcohol in his system. Analysis showed a significant level of alcohol in his blood, equivalent to around 40 shots of vodka over 12 hours. According to pathologist Dr. Edmund Hempstead, Bonham's death wasn't immediate. His body had gone into shock, and it took hours for the effects to ultimately take his life. During this time, his liver struggled to process the enormous amount of alcohol he had consumed. Bonham's passing marked a profound loss for Led Zeppelin and the rock world at large. As the heartbeat of the band, his powerful and distinct drumming style was a defining element of their music. The remaining members of Led Zeppelin, feeling they couldn't continue without Bonham, announced their decision to disband just a few months later, on December 4, 1980. In a brief statement, they expressed their respect for Bonham's memory and the unique bond they shared, concluding that they could not go on as a band without him. True to their word, Led Zeppelin officially ended. Although they did come together for a few performances in the years that followed, they never formally reunited as a band. One of their most notable reunion performances took place in 2007 at London's O2 Arena, which was later released as the live album Celebration Day. Bonham's sudden death shocked the music community, as he was widely regarded as one of rock's greatest drummers. His style, known for its intensity, speed, and unique rhythm, had redefined rock drumming. Many musicians looked up to him, and his influence on rock music remained strong. Led Zeppelin's bassist, John Paul Jones, recalled the heartbreaking moment he and Lefebvre found Bonham's body, describing the experience in the book, John Bonham, A Thunder of Drums. He expressed both anger and sadness over the loss, as Bonham's immense talent had been cut short. Bonham's struggles with alcohol were well known. While he had previously managed to overcome other substance issues, his alcohol dependence had only worsened. Friends and colleagues noted that Bonham had been dealing with personal challenges in the weeks before his passing, which might have contributed to his heavy drinking that night. At just 32, Bonham's death highlighted the intense lifestyle pressures faced by many rock musicians of that era. He had a larger-than-life personality, both on and off the stage, and enjoyed fast-paced thrills, including a passion for cars. Those close to him had seen the toll that addiction was taking on him and feared that it would eventually lead to a tragic outcome. Despite his struggles, Bonham left a legacy that continues to inspire musicians worldwide. His powerful drumming can be heard in Led Zeppelin's most famous songs, from Kashmir to When the Levee Breaks. His influence on the drummers who followed is unmistakable, and his style remains unmatched. Bonham's death raises questions that have lingered for decades. What if he hadn't consumed so much alcohol that night? Could his bandmates have done something to intervene? Might his life, and by extension Led Zeppelin's journey, have turned out differently? While the answers to these questions remain unknown, it's clear that Bonham's passing changed the course of rock history. Led Zeppelin, who had dominated the 1970s, was forced to end their journey far too soon, leaving fans to wonder what could have been. On December 21, 2021 in Chigwell, Essex, 23-year-old Connor Groom joined his colleagues for their annual Christmas party at Topgolf, a popular driving range. The atmosphere was lively, with friends sharing laughs and drinks, as Connor enjoyed the festivities, unaware that this night would take a tragic turn. Connor and his group arrived at Topgolf after starting the night at a nearby bar. They were seated in bays 36 and 37 on the venue's upper floor, approximately 12 feet above the ground, with safety nets below to prevent falls. The evening began with light-hearted pranks as friends playfully nudged each other toward the nets. The group saw these nets as reliable protection and continued their pranks despite security's warnings to stop. The pranks escalated as drinks kept flowing, and at one point, a friend jokingly announced he would push Connor toward the net. With no intent to harm, he ran up to Connor and pushed him, expecting him to fall safely onto the netting. But things went terribly wrong. Connor lost his balance, his foot caught in the net, and he tumbled over the edge, plummeting headfirst to the ground. Connor suffered severe injuries to his spine and brain. He was rushed to the Royal London Hospital, where he remained in critical condition for weeks as his family and friends held on to hope. Tragically, on January 25, 2022, Connor passed away from his injuries, leaving loved ones devastated by the sudden loss. An inquest into Connor's death reviewed CCTV footage showing a night filled with good spirits and no ill intentions among friends. Detective Inspector Lydia George from Essex Police described how the friends had repeatedly pushed each other near the nets. She noted that the friend who ultimately pushed Connor had not joined the earlier pranks and intended no harm, acting only in the playful spirit of the evening. Essex Police consulted with the Crown Prosecution Service or CPS about possible criminal charges, specifically considering manslaughter. However, they concluded that there was insufficient evidence to pursue this path, as the friend had not intended to hurt Connor. It was a prank that went tragically wrong, not an act of malice. Connor's parents supported the decision not to prosecute. They felt Connor wouldn't have wanted his friend to face charges for what was, at its core, a tragic accident. Connor and his friend shared a close bond, and his parents understood that this was an unfortunate misjudgment rather than a crime. At the inquest, Senior Coroner Lincoln Brooks echoed the sentiments of the family and police. He ruled the case as death by misadventure, noting that alcohol had likely impaired the group's judgment, contributing to the incident. Coroner Brooks offered his condolences to Connor's family, acknowledging the depth of their loss and expressing sorrow over the tragic outcome of the night's events. Following Connor's death, Topgolf implemented stricter safety measures to prevent future incidents. They added warning signs around the venue, introduced a zero-tolerance policy for reckless behavior, and created a new role for a player safety manager. This individual would oversee player conduct during busy times, especially when alcohol consumption was high, to ensure guests stayed safe. In his final remarks, Coroner Brooks shared his sympathy for Connor's family and the friend involved, recognizing how deeply this accident affected all parties. Connor's death is an example of how quickly a night of fun can turn into a tragedy, forever changing the lives of those involved. The painful what-if questions linger. What if the group had heeded the security's warning? What if Connor's friend hadn't pushed with such force? Each question reflects the fragile nature of life and how a single decision can bring irreversible consequences. Ultimately, Connor's passing was a tragic accident that will leave a lasting impact on everyone who knew him. While Topgolf has taken steps to improve safety, the tragedy remains, telling people the importance of caution even during moments of celebration. March 27, 2009, in Long Beach, California, Jeff Twaddle, a 54-year-old deckhand, was working on the charter boat Gale Force. Jeff was known for his friendly nature and sense of humor. That day, he was assisting with a fishing trip for a group of about 20 elementary school students from the Los Angeles Unified School District. The kids were excited, enjoying the adventure on the water. Jeff loved working with children and often went out of his way to make their trips memorable. He had been with the Gale Force, owned by Captain Dan Salas, for several years. His experience and warm personality made him a favorite among the crew and passengers. As the boat navigated the breakwater, Jeff decided to entertain the children with a light-hearted trick. He grabbed a bait fish, intending to make the kids laugh. Jeff placed the fish in his mouth, hoping to get a few giggles from the young audience. But things went terribly wrong. The fish became lodged in Jeff's throat. The children watched in shock as Jeff's playful act turned into a life-threatening situation. Jeff quickly lost consciousness, collapsing on the deck. Panic spread among the crew and students as they realized the seriousness of the situation. Crew members and lifeguards immediately rushed to help. They tried to dislodge the fish from Jeff's throat and began performing CPR. Despite their desperate efforts, they couldn't revive him. The scene was chaotic, with frantic attempts to save Jeff's life and the children witnessing the terrifying ordeal. Emergency services were called, and paramedics arrived swiftly. Jeff was transported to St. Mary Medical Center, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead at 1:15 p.m. The cause of death was ruled as aspiration of fish, a tragic freak accident. Captain Dan Salas expressed deep sorrow over the incident, describing it as a tragic freak accident. He told the press telegram that everyone involved was deeply saddened by the event. Jeff's death left a profound impact on everyone who knew him. The cheerful deckhand had become a victim of an unforeseen tragedy. The Los Angeles Unified School District took immediate action to support the traumatized students. They sent a note to parents, explaining what had happened and offering grief counseling for the children. The students were deeply affected by witnessing such a traumatic event, and the district wanted to ensure they received the help they needed. Jeff Twaddle was remembered as a kind-hearted man who loved his job and brought joy to many. His sudden and tragic death was an example of how quickly life can change. The fishing trip that was supposed to be a fun and educational experience turned into a heartbreaking event that no one could have anticipated.